In light of the red tide phenomenon occurring off the coast of California, I thought I would share a presentation I made last year covering the red tide. The main topics I will be covering is what the red tide is, what causes it, where it is located, how it affects both humans and marine life, how it can be prevented, and the toxicity. So, to get started, the red tide is a, quote, harmful, unquote, algal bloom, which we will get back to why the word harmful is quoted later. It results in a red discoloration in coastal water during the daytime. To just touch on its effects, I will mention that the red tide can potentially deplete oxygen in the water and additionally has the potential to release harmful toxins. The red tide can occur from anywhere between a few hours to months at a time, but there has increasingly been an account of prolonged periods of the red tide. Sometimes an odor may occur that is associated with marine life death. I found that this diagram beautifully displays the bloom development. This diagram specifically exemplifies Karenia brevis, which is found in abundance in the Gulf of Mexico. The red tide is caused by 3 types of microscopic algae, including dinoflagellates, diatoms, and cyanobacteria. For most of this presentation, we will be focusing on Karenia brevis, which is a dinoflagellate. If we follow this diagram, we can see that Karenia brevis lies dormant on the ocean floor. This algae prospers in certain conditions that will be discussed in the upcoming slides that can result in a mass accumulation of the algae. This abundance creates patches in the water that appear red during the daytime. This specific algae produces a potent neurotoxin known as brevitoxin that can affect marine life. If the sea life is then consumed by humans, this can lead to harmful consequences as well. In addition to consumption of contaminated sea life, humans can also be affected by airborne toxins from the algae, causing a variety of problems, including itchy eyes, coughing, and respiratory problems. So what exactly causes the red tide? A direct income of nutrients provides a most prosperous environment for the algae. Again, this diagram describes the process beautifully. Starting from the left side, we can see that aquaculture in a certain area of the ocean displaces organic substances from feces and extra diet from the fish to settle at the bottom of the ocean. As a reminder, the Karenia brevis lies dormant in this location. The organic substances in the sediment can then be decomposed by bacteria into substances that promote growth of the algae. We can also see that sewage from cities and industries also leads to organic substances accumulating in the sediment. Heavy metals can also accrue from these lines of sewage, which promotes growth. Dissolution of the sediments is the process of going from a solid being broken down into small particles that are surrounded by a liquid, like when you mix a sugar cube into a cup of tea. Other growth factors that algae thrive in are warm temperatures, low salinity, high pH levels, and large amounts of nutrients and vitamins. Weather conditions that promote growth are low wind and rain, followed by sunny days. These optimum conditions can result in a red tide. To emphasize, here's a list of where the nutrients that promote the growth of Karenia brevis is derived from. This includes undersea sediments, decaying fish, water flowing from estuaries, and deposits from the atmosphere, just to name a few. In this image, it lists the environmental conditions that I stated previously, as well as other sources of excess nutrients, which include agriculture, industry, and urban life. It even addresses how climate change has increased the frequency and severity of blooms, because it increases the growth factors needed for algae blooms to thrive. The red tide is found in most coastal regions. If you view the image on the left, you can see where all the harmful algal blooms are located. This image does not include blooms that are not harmful. Scientists are able to monitor and track algal blooms by utilization of satellite imagery. These satellites can detect changes in the way that water reflects light. The discoloration of the water leads to these changes in reflections. It is also able to indicate how concentrated the algal bloom is at any point in time. Since the toxin can become airborne near shore, it can lead to eye irritation, skin irritation, vomiting, and respiratory issues in humans. For individuals with pre-existing respiratory conditions, the symptoms may be more severe. Overall, the toxin can lead to a weaker immune system. Again, to emphasize, humans can indirectly come into contact with contamination through the consumption of marine life that was in contact with the red tide. Social effects for humans include local tourism effects as it drives people away from coastal or beach regions. Another social effect includes coastal fisheries being impacted as the fisheries are not able to be located in red tide areas that contaminate the fish, as well as profit loss when the fish are affected by the red tide. Marine animals may be killed by the masses if the toxic algae bloom occurs, especially for prolonged periods of time. In the photo, you can see the beaches lined with the marine life that have been killed and drifted ashore. When the algae die, bacteria and other microbes feed on the algae, in which these microbes require oxygen in order to survive, which depletes the water of the relatively low content of dissolved oxygen in water that marine life also needs to survive. The marine life is either forced to move away from these areas or can be killed by the toxin in addition to oxygen-depleted water. The red tide can be prevented by reducing environmental impacts caused by humans, monitoring growth promoters, monitoring algal blooms via satellite imagery, and a clay technology that is used in other locations of the world. The clay technology is utilized by dispersing into the water, in which the tiny clay particles clump together in the water. This increases the density of the clay to be larger than the density of water so that it may sink. As the larger clay clumps sink, they attach to the Crania brevis cells and chemically neutralize the toxins that they release. The Crania brevis is killed in the process and sinks to the bottom with the clay to be deposited on the ocean floor, resulting in a layer harmless to sea life or plants. To summarize, not all algae blooms are toxic, but many are considered harmful as it can block sunlight, deplete oxygen in the water, and clog the gills of marine life. In the top corner, you can see an image of Crania brevis. To refer back to the bioluminescent waves seen along the coast of California right now, it is a specific dinoflagellate that causes the bioluminescence seen at nighttime. Not all algal blooms emanate the bioluminescence. It is the aggregation of the specific dinoflagellate that results in the vivid blue colors. I have attached a video of the bioluminescent waves seen in Newport Beach, California, where dolphins can be seen swimming through the water. My references can be viewed on the screen. I hope you all enjoyed!